he and I just kind of vibed and connected that weekend. And one of the things that I asked him, which is what I ask any artist, is why do you want to do this? And I'm getting ready to tell y'all my secret. Lord knows now every artist is going to know what to say when they come up to me. But he said, I just want people to hear what I have to say. I just want people to hear my art. And if it's only 20 people, then I'm cool with that, because I just have so much inside of me that needs to come out. And I was like, yo, let's do this.
Yo, what's up, Sam? How you doing, man?
What's good, bro? Super excited about today's episode, man. Tell us what we got.
Today, man, we have Charlene Bryant. She's Trippie Red's manager, and she's owner of Riveter Management, a cool, unique management company that she started off the back of Trippie Red's success. So today we get into a lot of different things. Trippie Red's obviously had a super great career so far in the past year or two. I had a super great career since she started managing them. A Love Letter to You 4 hit #1 on the Billboard 200 when it came out last December. So we dive from front to back the story of how that happened, the things that had to take place in order to build Trippie Red up to that level of success, her relationship with Trippie Red, which I think a lot of people will benefit from, because obviously like relationships between manager and client differ between each person. But I think she has a really unique, honest, and openly confrontational approach to management that just derives the best results. So I'm super glad we got to get into it. So I think she was charismatic the entire time. There's a lot of laughter and a lot of insight in this episode. So I'm excited for people to hear it. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I also really enjoyed her experience working in the label side. She definitely spent some time working with as a digital account manager for Sony and RCA prior to starting Riveter. So I think her experience working in the label really set her up to succeed as a manager, and I feel like the insight she shared in regard to that was really valuable. She also went to school to become a pediatrician, but now manages like a superstar act. So I think it's for anybody that wants to get into management, like there's no black and white formula to make it happen, and I think she just proves that point, and now is doing it, kind of managing at the highest of levels. The last thing I really like too is how critical she kind of spoke to the fact how Trippie Red himself has very clear goals, and that has set up their relationship for success. So I think whether you're a manager or you're an artist, being able to make sure that you have very clear and vocal goals is how you're going to be able to work backwards and reverse engineer success. So I found all that stuff to be super valuable. But before we jump into the episode and the interview with Charlene, do you want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Vidya?
Vidya is an end-to-end music technology platform that provides labels and managers with the infrastructure and technology they need to power their business. They offer audio and video distribution, supply chain analytics, rights management, payments, detailed revenue reporting, marketing, essentially everything that you would want in a music technology company, and in particular, a distribution company. They're premium partners for leading digital service providers like Spotify, Apple, TikTok, Vivo, Facebook. I doubt there's a place you go to that they haven't spoken with and aren't partners with. So why should you care, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think for you guys that are listening, whether you're an independent label, manager, what they do well is provide you with the backbone so you can really focus on growing and scaling your business, right? You don't want to necessarily get bogged down in a lot of these other functions. You want to focus on helping grow and develop your artists, helping market and promote them. And I think by partnering with Vidya, it enables you to do exactly that. So even beyond, I mean, they continue to partner with top independent talent. Just recently, they announced their partnership with Akon's label Convict Culture. A lot of other major artists are distributing their music and working and partnering with Vidya. So I think even for us too, I mean, as we're looking and speaking with different potential sponsors, it's so critical for us that it's a very valuable platform for our listeners. And I think in this instance, it truly is. I think the features and the different technology they bring to the table is best in class when it comes to different distributors. So really want to encourage you guys to check out their website. They've spun up an application page exclusively for Music Business Podcast listeners. So if you're looking for a premier distribution partner, want to encourage you guys to head over to vidya.com/MVP to request an invite. That's VYDIA.com/MVP. And there it is. There you have it. So without any further ado, let's jump into this week's episode with Miss Charlene Bryant.
Let's do it.
Charlene, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, definitely very excited about this episode. So I think for starters, I know you've been working in music for a while and have kind of bounced around between different labels and different genres. But if you could just talk about how you kind of made the jump, and I think there's a lot of people that listen that always maybe working for a label but want to start their own management company. Like, can you talk about that step and what it was like kind of making that leap to kind of becoming self-employed and running your own business?
Yeah, it actually is a very interesting story. I just remember I had been working for Tripp for about 6 months, and I was working full time at Sony as a digital account manager. So I was spearheading Spotify, Apple Music, all those accounts. And I just came in initially when I started working with Tripp just to kind of open the lines of communication between him and the label, because he had gotten into some trouble and everyone fell off the face of the earth. So I was just coming in to clean stuff up. I was only going to consult for maybe, 3 months. I was like 90 days and then we're good. I'm going to go back to my regularly scheduled career. And so I'm 6 months in and I'm like, okay, I got to make a decision. And I'm sitting in a conference room and everyone's going around the table and they're talking about, one of the questions that was posed was, in the Christian space, releases are very cyclical. Like, you come out with a release every 2 years. And I was like, so people don't want to worship Jesus in between that 2-year cycle. I just noticed in hip hop, there's mixtapes. And that was the year that Ariana Grande dropped Sweetener in the summer. And then Thank You Next came out in December and went wild. So I'm like, so pop is now doing mixtapes, but now we don't do that in we don't do that in Christian and gospel. So I was wondering why. So that was one of the questions that was posed at the table, and everyone said that they were down. And then when it came time to unpack it, which I was really happy, because a lot of times in that space too, people are set in their ways and they want to do what they go through. We do it this way and this is why. So anywho, I'm sitting in the boardroom and then the conversation shifts and everyone that went from, yes, we would do a mixtape in this space, all of a sudden said, no, now we don't think it's a good idea. We need to stick to the 2-year cycle. And I'm like, sitting there and I'm like, there's no growth. There's no development. I felt like I hit the ceiling. I'm literally just looking up in the sky like, why am I here? And then I look down and Trippie is FaceTiming me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get up from this meeting. I'm going to see what he wants. And so I answer the call. I go in another room, answer the call, and he's just spouting off ideas about his next project, future things that he wants to do. And I'm getting jazzed up and excited about it too, because, he's super excited and this is just an exciting time for both of us. And he looks at me and goes, well, you have to quit your job and you got to move to LA. And I was like, okay, done. So I put in my notice the next week and that was it. It was almost like I was waiting for a divine moment to happen. And in that conference room where I was sitting there thinking, what am I doing? Why am I here? And he called and then he was just like, quit your job. And I'm like, okay, why not? When else am I going to have this opportunity to work with an artist of this caliber? And I was like, this could go really great or this could go really bad, but either way, I won't regret this decision. So I put in my notice and 4 months later, I quit my job and started managing Trippie Redd full time.
So you were in New York when you moved to LA?
No, I was in Nashville. I was in Vegas. Yes, the home of country and Christians. That's where I was.
Cool. And then what were some of the inflection points you think in your career with Trippie Redd that kind of got you guys closer between manager and client?
Well, so we're both from the same small town. We're both from Canton, Ohio. I've known his mom my entire life. And she called me January. You said
you've known his mom your entire life?
Yeah, I've known her.
Oh, wow.
It's Canton, right? It's Canton. She knows.
You just kind of said that. And I was like, wait, hold up. What?
Yeah, it's Canton. It's not like being in LA or New York, right? Where you only know people in the borough, right? It's Canton. Right. Everybody knows everybody. And so she's known me all my life. And it's random. She just called me January 2018 and she goes, my son is blowing up and we need your help. I hear you work in the music industry. And I was like, I don't know who your son is. And she was like, Trippie Redd. And I was like, I don't know who that is. And oddly enough, I was in New York for the Grammys for work. And so I was just like, this is such a random call. And not to mention, like 3 months prior, my grandfather had passed away October 2017. And I remember being like, what is it you want to do with your life? Because my grandfather, before he passed, he told me how proud he was of me and like how he thought it was amazing that I was traveling the world and doing all these cool things. And he was just like, don't stop, just do whatever it is that you want to do. So I remember thinking maybe I should try artist management. And I had just finished reading an artist management book that December. So when she called me in January, I was like, yo, this is weird. But then in my mind, I was like, stay ready, you have to get ready. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, yes, it was.
I read that too.
Yep. That was definitely it. Yep, that was the book. So I just finished it and I was just like, man, she's calling me. Like, it's so weird that she's calling me about this. And initially, one of Tripp's cousins was managing him. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And Tripp was like, I don't know Charlene. So, I don't want to work with her. Fast forward 6 months later, his mom said, just come out he was in Columbus at the time, just come out to Columbus, meet him, see if you catch a vibe and see if you guys connect. And I remember going in her house, she picks me up from the airport and he is sitting on the floor. He's going to kill me because mad people are going to listen to this podcast. But anyway, he is sitting on the floor, legs folded up, playing video games in his boxers. And she was like, hey, Charlene is here. And he looks at me and like does this childlike wave. And I was like, oh no, this is a child. I got a whole career and a whole job. I'm not doing this. And so I was like, but I'll be kind and polite since, she invited me here. So 20 minutes later, his friends come in and they're like, hey, Tripp, we're going to Walmart. Because, like in Ohio, there's Walmart's the cool thing to do. So they're like, hey, Tripp, we're going to Walmart. You want to come with us? And he's like, oh, let me get dressed. So he runs upstairs. He puts on all this designer shit and he's got the chains and the teeth. And that kid levitates down those fucking stairs. And I was like, that's a star. I can do this. So after that, like he and I just kind of vibed and connected that weekend. And one of the things that I asked him, which is what I ask any artist, is why do you want to do this? And I'm getting ready to tell y'all my secret. Lord knows now every artist is going to know what to say when they come up to me. But he said, I just want people to hear what I have to say. I just want people to hear my art. And if it's only 20 people, then I'm cool with that because I just have so much inside of me that needs to come out. And I was like, yo, let's do this. Because in my mind, if any artist comes up to me and says, I want to do this for the money, then I'm going to tell them they should just go back to school and be a doctor or a lawyer because you're guaranteed the money and it's going to be more and it's going to be faster than this business. So, yeah. So after we had those conversations, I asked him what his goals were. He gave me 4 very, very high achieving goals, which one we already hit, which was debut #1 on Billboard. But the other 3,
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. The other 3 were, he said, win a Grammy, which I feel like, okay. And then he said, I want to do 500,000 first week. I was like, okay. And he was like, and I want either a project or a song to go diamond. And I was like, those last 2 is like stuff that Mariah Carey does. But like the cool thing is like Fuck Love just went 6 times platinum. And I looked at him the other day and was like, yo, do you know how like hard this is? Do you know that this shit is not attainable by people, especially in your generation in this streaming space? Like when there was physical product, hell yeah, you go diamond. But
so going 6 times platinum, it's just so many more people have to listen to your music in order for that to happen. You know what I mean? It's like in order for one record to be, or for one song to count as a sale, it's like damn near probably whole city of Canton has to listen to the song in order for that to happen. So like that many record sales is ridiculous. And one thing that I noticed that I also want to point out too about his answers to you is that one, he had goals and he was goal oriented. And I do think as a manager, that's something to work with. Cause I heard vision when you said that.
Yes.
And 2, the reasons why he said he wanted to do music are like, they're infinite. So like money is a finite resource, and
Right.
saying that you want to do it for money, like, well, what happens when you get money? What happens then, you know? But
Right.
saying like, I just want people to hear this message that I have, and I have, you know, things to say, that's so individualistic and unique to that person. And, you know, he's always going to be Trippie Redd, you know? So like,
Right.
that's definitely, that's almost like inspiring to hear, for sure. Just, I'm sure for other artists listening to this too, just kind of like the answers that he gave you were just like really impressive. So
Yeah, especially since he had just turned 19
yeah.
when I met him, and that for me, I knew he and I would work very, very well together, simply because he inspires me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, you know, a lot of times I find artists that want to work with managers, they think, you know, the managers are just supposed to make money and opportunity fall out of the sky, right? And it's like, yeah, but you got to have skin in the game. And when he gave me those answers, I was like, man, this kid is going to work as hard on the creative side as I am on the business side, which we're going to be unstoppable together. Because just based on the answers that he gave me, he really, really wants to do this. So for me, it inspires me to go out and grind and hustle and bring every opportunity and that much harder for him, because I know that he's working just as hard on the creative side.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's amazing and inspiring, and helps each other snowball. So in that vein, like when you think about like working hard on the business side, like as a manager, how do you think about splitting up your focus? I mean, I know there's a lot of different things pulling at your attention, and especially as you start to develop more credibility as a manager and just with your artist and with Trippie Redd himself, like there's no shortage of interesting opportunities. So it's, how do you go about like prioritizing where you put your time and your efforts?
Wow, that's a great question. Having a team is pivotal, right? Because there's so many different things that can grab my attention, and there's some things that end up bearing fruit and some not so much. So what I try to do, I did bring on other managers to help out, because once we did get that goal of debuting #1 on Billboard Top 200, I don't know why I thought like it was going to slow down a little bit. I don't know why. I'm like, oh, it's gonna slow down. We're going into Christmas. My phone was ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to decide as a manager, which was, you know, a difficult decision, because even, you know, my peers have asked me like, how is it, you know, we partner with Maverick, managing Trip, as well as Peter, who used to manage Juice World. He's now, he's with Grade A. But they said, you know, you got like, I don't know, 6, 7 other managers now. How is that? And I'm like, you know what? It's a balancing act, but I spread, you know, there's enough of us that there's enough work to go around. But more people were just asking like, yo, you went from being solely in control to, you know, having partners. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have an ego. And it was for the greater good of my artist. That was the best decision I made for Trippie. That has nothing to do with me. Could I sit back and get all the shine and get all the clout and take all the, you know, the responsibility and drive myself to drink every single day like I do? But it's like, no, if I could take him to the next level and build a team around it, then why wouldn't I do that? For the sake of me, you know, not having the one notoriety of being his only manager. Like, fuck yeah. Like, it's not about me. It's about him. Like, every decision that I make is to increase his business. And then with this partnership, they're so dope. You know, we work with G. Roberson and Gene Nelson. I mean, vets in the game. It's helping to elevate me as a manager as well. So there's times, you know, as a manager, you got to put that ego aside and just see what's the best decision for your artist. So with that, I've been able to manage all the different moving pieces, parts, and then grow my own company as well, because I do have that help and that assistance.
Right. So I want to talk about the #1 on Billboard, but before I do that, I just want to talk about you know, what are the things that you looked for when you were looking for other managers to work with? Like, what are some of the things that you felt were important in getting partners?
That's a great question. I was looking for people to challenge me, right? Like, Could I have gotten a group of individuals that think just like me?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But where's the fun in that, right? How is that going to grow me? How is that going to grow Trippie's brand and his business? So I really looked for people that, you know, had experience, had a proven track record, had the same values in terms of integrity, because you know this business can be. So that was important to me. But on the flip side of that, I also wanted people that were going to come in and challenge me and not just yes, ma'am, me to death, like, and just say, oh, Charlene, we think you're great. That's great. That's amazing. No, like we sometimes get into arguments over stuff as a team on our calls. And it's like, it's amazing to me because I'm like, yo, everybody is passionate and the goal is Tripp and expanding his business. But then on the flip side of it, we're all hella cool. And it's also just to expand and grow us as managers as well. So I definitely wanted to be challenged, but I definitely wanted to work with people that had the same core values. And then the vision, you know, Tripp came to me with a vision. So it was important to me to work with others that had a vision for him as well.
And then I guess just one more question before we get into Billboard. Like, what do you think is the biggest thing that has challenged you so far when you've gotten these partners? Like one thing that kind of changed after you started working with them, whether that's the way you approach certain situations, the way you think about your career, or?
I think in the beginning, I thought, wow, these people are going to come in and the work is going to be alleviated. Just going to magically, my job is going to get way easier. But there is, what is it called? The four steps of forming an organization. So it's forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? So forming is when you come together. Storming is when you're trying to figure out the groove and get to know everyone and get to know the vibe and how everybody works. And then norming is when it's like, okay, we're all cohesive and we're all one band, one sound. And then performing is when it's like, it's working and we're taking it to the next level. Mm-hmm. I forgot that those are the 4 stages of like a team. That's what it is, 4 stages of a team. So that storming part, I was like, oh no, no. Listen, everyone, this is too much going on. This is supposed to be easier. And I feel like we're now, because we've been working together for a couple of months now during COVID, really flipped everything on the side of its head. But we're at the ending phase of the storming part. So we're getting into norming. And that was the hardest part, forgetting that we were going to storm as a group. I really just thought that they were going to come in like Black saviors and save me and make it so much easier instantly. And that's not exactly what happened. But even through the storming phase, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my individual business, which they've helped speak into and pour into as well. And I've learned a lot about them as individuals and how to be a better manager. And I've learned a lot about Tripp in this process. And I've come out, you know, stronger. And we all are like, we call ourselves Voltron at this point. That's another little secret. I'm probably talking way too much on this podcast.
No, it's cool. And they need you, you know, your essence is kind of, in addition to your artist, is what they're attracted to also, you know? So as much as it seems like these people can save you, they can't until you're there. It seems like, you know, until you're present, until you're active. So cool. So yeah, let's get into a love letter to you for the #1 record in the country. How did that happen? What's some of the big moments that led to that, and what do you think were some of the successes in getting to that moment?
A breakup. Not mine, but a breakup. A breakup definitely was inspo. Because, you know, young love and teenage angst and all those things. And so getting to that point creatively, and then just kind of, I watched Tripp come into his own, and we had been together for a year at that point. So I'm watching him grow and develop, and I'm teaching him the business as well, teaching him all the back end things that he didn't know, but I'm still making sure he's a creative and he's creating. I don't let him know all the details and the minutia, but, and then just empowering him to make the music that he wanted to make and not necessarily make things, because he was coming to me like, okay, but is this song, are the fans going to like this? And are they going to like this song? And I was like, listen, fans come and go. But you said to me, the reason why you do this is because you have something to say. So what do you have to say? Like, just talk about it. How do you feel right now? Like, what are the things that, you know, are on your heart and on your mind? And he was just like, well, you know, I'm always in my feelings. Like, okay, we'll get in the studio and talk about always being in your feelings. Like, no matter whether or not he's in a relationship, by the way, he always makes heartbreak music. And like, I'm always in my feelings too. I'm like, so we are just together, always in our feelings. So I'm like, this is so great. This is so good. And so a lot of the songs that he actually had on the album were, so like even right now we're working on multiple projects, but he will have like, I don't know, we probably have 5 or 6 projects worth of music right now because the kid doesn't stop working. So he did his first headline tour the top of last year. When he came off tours, when he started recording music, but he was also recording for ! That came out 2 months prior. So he picked a group of songs for that, and then a breakup, and then it just kicked him into, I need to focus on my bag. And I just watched this kid be in the studio. I mean, he was in the studio recording, and it was just him and the engineer. The engineer's falling asleep. Everyone in the studio is passed out, and he's just cranking out all these songs. And I just remember even getting with our creative director, Aiden Cullen, who we were introduced to through Tripp's label, 10K Projects. When he heard the music and he came to us with this vision, and I was like, yo, let's do it. Like, Tripp has never done anything. We've never done an album cover like this before. We've never done a photo shoot like this before. Like I just told Tripp, whatever you feel, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And then if it doesn't work, then okay. But I want this project to really have your stamp and your say-so and your creative direction on it. And I'm going to tweak it and push it. And, you know, I was on the back end doing making sure we had all the connects with the DSPs and all the good things. And I just remember the day that the album came out, I looked at Tripp and I was like, how do you feel? And he was like, I feel good. And I was like, me too. Everything that we wanted, because I forgot to mention this, we had kind of like a checklist. It wasn't a formal written down one, but we had a checklist of the things that we wanted, the big, like, wishful things. Like, he wanted the Spotify billboard in Times Square, like stuff like that. All the things that he wanted and all the things that I wanted from a business standpoint, we got. We did it. So when the album came out, we were like, we feel good. No matter what happens, we feel really, really good about this project. And if we had to do it all over again, we would do it the exact same way. And there was something about that content that I think just fueled, because when we found out the project was number 1, we were in Australia. Tripp was doing a festival run out in Australia. And so, you know, we heard, I believe Coldplay's album had dropped and the Frozen 2 soundtrack. And I was like, oh, okay, we about to be number 3. It's like, these kids about to stream the hell out of Frozen. Like, I don't know if Adina Menzel's on this one, but I know it's about to go. But it was like, we were cool, right? Because we was just like, everything that we wanted, he accomplished everything creatively. I accomplished everything on the business. So we were good. And then we get that phone call from Elliot Grange, and he calls us and goes, you guys, the album is number 1. And he was like, it's unofficial. And I literally broke down crying, and Tripp was like, get the fuck away from me. I was like, we did it. It's one of your goals. I did it within a year and 3 months. I'm the greatest manager ever. Don't you understand? And he was just like, oh my God. And so then he gets off the phone with Elliot. And I was like, how do you feel now? He was like, the same. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, whatever. You're just as happy as me. I'm just crying all over the place, and you're just trying to keep it cool. So
That's amazing. That's fun,
thank
full
you.
circle moment. And I think I'm sure it's just added nothing but more fuel to the fire and continue to move the goalposts for more ambitious goals.
Yes, it has. I don't know how I'm gonna pull off this 500,000 the first week, especially with these new bundle rules. Thanks, Billboard. But it's gonna happen, guys.
Yeah. That's amazing. One thing that you mentioned in that story too is that kind of in your experience in working with him as a manager, like you did want to make sure he didn't get too caught up in the minutia and the little things, so he could focus on being creative. But you did also say too that you kind of helped him get a better understanding of kind of the business side of this whole game. Can you talk about certain things? I know you have a lot of experience working with not only with Trippy, but in the label world. What are specific things that you think are really important for artists to be aware of so they don't get in positions where they get taken advantage of by the industry?
First and foremost, you, aside from, this is what I've recommended to quite a few artists, because a lot of artists want to jump in and get a manager immediately. But to me, the most important person on your team and the one that you need that's the closest relationship with is your lawyer. Like, that is the person that is going to make sure, or is supposed to make sure, that you're okay and you're not signing yourself into slavery or anything crazy like that. So for me, like, definitely making sure you have a great lawyer, you have someone that you can trust, and you have someone that's gonna pick, because I mean, I call my lawyer, I don't know, every 3 days, because even though I don't have a law degree, I do look at contracts. And what I have learned is there's one word in a sentence that really can change the whole level of the contract, just in that one sentence. So I always call and ask questions about our contracts and things like that. So for me, like, any artist that's, up and coming or, wanting to get in this game, get a dope lawyer. Like, that's definitely key. What I learned, what definitely helped me in my role, especially with Tripp's releases, is just having the background that I had in the digital account management. There's a lot of artists, up and coming artist managers, that ask me, if I have an opportunity, should I work for a label? Why or why not? And, sometimes people tend to think like the label is this big bad, entity. But if you have an opportunity before you jump into the artist management game, or while you're in the artist management game, to work for a label for about 2 years, do it. Because having that experience to see what happened, knowing what production has to go through and what those deadlines look like and what they actually have to do to make sure everything is on the DSPs, knowing a marketing plan inside and out and what goes into that and what goes into budgets, knowing the A&R process and a production budget, that shit, you'll learn it as an artist manager, but knowing it from the label side looks completely different. So it's almost like me having that experience, I knew what to ask for when I went into those meetings and said, Tripp wants to do this, and this. I could push back because I know what the label can do and what they can't. And I do know that if an artist goes into much like when I had my boardroom conference meeting where everyone was like, no, they'll shut you down when you work inside of a label, right? There's so much red tape. But if the artist goes in there and asks for things, they're going to make it happen. And I knew that coming from inside the label.
Right.
So there were just so many different things that helped take our project to the next level. And on the flip side, my relationship with the label and our distributor, who's Caroline, we have an appreciation for each other. They love and respect me because I come from the label side, and they know I know what it takes. So when they need things turned in and when they need, quick turnarounds and things like that, I got their back because I worked at a label and I know what that is about. So working at a label was, to me, I thought I was going to be She Diddy and I was going to run Bad Boy and then for that. But working for a label for me was so pivotal because I just learned how to run a label, basically, how to run that business, because I had so many different roles. I did operations management. I was an admin when I first got my foot in the door. So that was the most valuable experience. And again, any up and coming artist manager I would recommend for sure. Like, if you can work at a label for a year or two, do it, because you're going to learn so much and you're going to be so valuable to your artist and to the label.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I feel like, I mean, one thing that's, I'm sure, has been interesting too is like how marketing has evolved. I mean, you mentioned the marketing plans within labels and seeing and kind of making decisions when it comes to allocating marketing budgets and putting some here, some there. I'm sure like the allocations and how even just what a marketing plan looks like today versus even like a year or two ago, like it's changing like every damn day. With that said, like, where do you see when you think about like marketing releases right now, or maybe even thinking about back to some of the recent releases that have had really a very successful reception? Like, what to you are like the strong components or areas of focus when it comes to not only marketing music, but marketing artists and just building like such a thriving and massive fan base?
Man, so the cool thing about coming from the Christian and gospel space, there's like, you have your budget is like $1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, now pop, hip hop, it's like, oh, money to throw around. Christian and gospel, like, look, you got this $1, half of it has to go to Jesus, the other half has to go to your release. So having that, like, I know how to stretch $1 in a budget. I know how to make stuff go. I know how to make opportunities happen without even using money, because we had to think about it on that side. So that was a blessing that I got from that role. Now, I mean, someone just asked me the other day, they're going to start managing an up and coming artist. And they were like, what do you recommend? And I'm like, well, shit, 7 months ago, I would say, hop on a tour. Those don't exist right now. So it's a way of finding and connecting with a fan base that, you're not going to see on a stage. So how do you think outside the box? What does, like, marketing now looks so different, because I'm just thinking about Brandy's release, for example, and how she did Good Morning America from her home. Like Good Morning America, GMA, everybody is like, you can't wait to go to New York and stand out there with the fans and perform on the stage, but that doesn't even look the same anymore. So, marketing now just looks completely different. And it is trying to find, and I mean, I'm hesitating on answering this because it's, we're trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we market a release? Content is definitely key. It's always been key, but now that everyone is on their computers, and it's not just any content, right? You could put out any music video. You could do any sort of live stream from home, but everyone is doing that. So how do you do it differently? How do you do it better? How do you do it in a way that's engaging? I will say that I do feel like when everyone went on TikTok and created a TikTok account during quarantine, it was like, man, but everyone's doing this, but it's content, So trying to market in this world is very, very different, but it can be done because, okay, prime example, I'm sitting here saying, okay, if I was an up and coming artist, you need to hop on a tour. Tours don't happen. So whose live stream can you open for? Live stream. You know what I'm saying? Like who can you say, like, I think Meg Thee Stallion has a big live stream coming up on Saturday. If I was an up and coming artist, and this would be a long shot, but I would try it. I would definitely try to reach out to management and be like, can I get 15 seconds or 30 seconds before, like, just so I can play a song? Or is there an intermission? Is there something that I can do where I can get in front of her fans? Of course, you want to make sure that your brand and your music is going to connect with her fans. I wouldn't recommend, if you're a country artist, to go before Meg Thee Stallion and before she does WAP, worship and praise. But, it's just those little nuances and finding those opportunities and seeing, look at how many artists are going on Instagram Live right now. seeing if you can jump on a live with an artist. Yeah, it's a long shot, but a lot of them are doing it. Hey, Tory Lanez was doing it for months. And so, just, or even asking, all these ideas are coming randomly out of nowhere. Just asking D Nice if you can hop in on one of his DJ sets. I would literally try anything. The sky is the limit, and the worst that can happen is someone says no. That's it.
Yeah, it's funny you're coming up with all these ideas, because the best managers that I've worked with, I feel like, find the cracks in the foundation of like kind of the field that they're in. So like if an artist says like, I want to be #1 on the Billboard 200 for an album, it's not like, oh wow, that's a lot. It's a really big lofty goal. It's like, let's find all the ways we can sneak up the ladder in order for that to happen, because it's not going to be in front of you. It's going to be right, left, behind you, under you. Those are the paths you have to look at too. So that's like super dope that you say that. Speaking of, what do you think of some of the things that you've been able to take advantage of, or what are some of the things that have been able to allow his fan base to be like so engaged? Like, what do you think some of the keys and how he's just built that relationship with his fan base?
One of the things I remember telling him very early on is because I witnessed it, right? Apparently I was like, I'm bitten by the artist management bug before I knew it. But I watched how Cardi B was unapologetically herself. I mean, I watched this woman talk about why she didn't want to get her teeth fixed. Like, because she's just
I
give
on
head
Twitter
better.
before all of that. Yeah. I follow her on Twitter before all of that.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, she is saying the wildest shit, but she is being herself. And people are eating it up. And I was like, there's something to that, right? Like, I feel like gone are the days where we can manufacture an artist, right? Where we can teach them how to dance, teach them how to sing, teach them stage presence, teach them, media coaching and things like that. All of those things are still important. However, what will connect your fan base the most is being yourself. Like and being a creative, Trippie tends to second guess himself sometimes. He's like, should I put up this video of me dancing to Ray J's One Wish in the Rain? And like, everyone around him be like, oh no, man, that's why. I'm like, fuck yeah, put that shit up. That shit's funny as hell, because who else is doing that right now? And then next thing you know, he posts stuff like that and people think, he is so funny. He's hilarious. So I'm just like, just be yourself. Don't try to be anything else. Like, you being you is how you got your fans, and that's how you connected. So for any artist, everyone has quirks. We're humans. And I feel like more people now know their quirks now more than ever because of COVID. We've had to be like stuck in the house and look at ourselves and deal with ourselves day in and day out. Everyone has quirks. Everyone has flaws. Embrace them. Be you. Be unapologetic to be you. That's the thing that I feel like took Cardi to the next level, because she was unashamed of who she knew she was crazy and wild, and she thinks of the wildest shit, and she still like, people still connected because she's so real and it's so raw, and it's not like she's trying to be anybody else. So that was the advice that I gave Trippie. I just said, be you, do you. And some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it, but who cares? As long as you're being true to yourself, that's all that matters.
Right. That actually answers sort of one of my next questions, which was like, how do you develop and grow the brand of Trippie Redd? How much of it comes from him? How much of it comes from you? But from what you just said, it sounds like you do a lot of validation and a lot of extracting what he maybe doesn't already know about himself, and saying it's okay to show this side. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
It's sort of like taking the elements of him as a person and being like, well, what if we just do this times 10? Because it's still you, but let's just try to put it on the main stage in like a real way, Right.
And even so being able to do that, I'm sorry to cut you off. Even be able to do that like on the business side, right? Like when I'm watching someone be like Gucci down every day, I'm like, perhaps we should get you involved in Fashion Week. And he's like, oh my God, that'd be great. But just paying attention, right? Just being present and being engaged with him, and just seeing, he plays video games. So I'm just like, okay, taking notes of the things that he likes to do, and the things that, when he's not working, when he's not creating music, I'm watching him be a whole character So I'm like, film and TV. Like, would you want to get into acting? And he's like, I would love that. So it's just, paying attention to that side of it too, like pulling out who he is in his brand, but also looking at the bigger picture of what else is his brand that he may not even be aware of yet.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
And I mean, in that vein too, like I know Trippie, he was on Dave on Hulu. Can you talk a little bit about how that kind of came together? I mean, you even just mentioned like acting, one thing leads to another.
Yes. So it's so funny because no one, again, me being around him for the last 2 years, I know how much of a great actor and clown he is. He's just so funny. But that opportunity literally just came out of nowhere through a friend. And they were like, Scooter Braun needs one. I was like, who? And they were like, Scooter Braun is looking for someone to show Dave. And I was like, we're available.
That reminds me of Trippie Red calling you and being like, yo, you got to move to LA now. It's like, Scooter Braun wants us? All right, we're there.
We're available. We're available right now. And I believe at the time I got the phone call, I was in Nashville because I was actually packing up to move to LA. So I was trying to, living in between the two places. And I called Tripp and I was like, what are you doing? He was like, I am in the studio working right now. I was like, you're about to be on this TV show. He was like, oh, what's the address? Let me go. I was like, so we have been talking about it. And the thing that I love, about Trippie that he actually taught me about myself was the power of manifestation. Like I literally have watched this kid talk about randomly. He was talking about Dennis Rodman. I want to meet Dennis Rodman. And I was just like, what? Like, I just remember just being like, what? That is the most random thing I've ever heard in my life. A week later, who do we meet at Rolling Loud? Dennis Rodman. And I was just like, this is insane. Or we did a radio interview. This was August of last year. And they said, who would you like to collab with? And I have the list in my mind. Like, I'm like, Lil Wayne, going through. And he was like, Katy Perry. And I was like, excuse me? Who? We walk out of the radio station and who's standing right there? Out of the booth. Katy Perry. And I was like, this shit is wild, man. Like, so this kid manifests stuff. So we had just been talking about him acting, but no one knew that's, it was literally like me, him, and like a couple other people were just talking about him acting. And so when we got the call from Dave, I was just like, hey, Lil Dicky has his show. He's like, yes, what's the address? And I was like, we just talked about this last week and it's happening. So the power of manifestation is so real because I watch him do it all the time. And so I just started doing it. I just started calling forth all these millions. Have them one day, y'all. All these
there we go. I love it.
I need to do that more often.
I'll be right there with you, Charlene.
We all need to do it. Right? We all have millions.
I want millions.
Say it right now.
I want millions.
Go ahead, Jordan. Claim your millions.
They mine. I just got to find them.
Right. They're just out. They're out there. Trust me.
They trying to find me too.
They're trying to find you too.
I love that. So one of the questions we have, I mean, now that we're coming toward the end, is on the side of like, what do you feel separates like good managers from great managers? I mean, we would consider you to be a great manager, but even when you're dealing with other people too, like maybe to you, you're inspired. And you mentioned surrounding yourself with people that you feel are better than you. So like, what do you see as these traits that differentiate the great managers from the good ones?
Also, just want to shout out Brady from our Patreon for submitting the last question about how did you get involved with Dave. So just want to shout him out real quick.
Jordan always got to plug the Patreon.
I just got to make sure that people know that they are appreciated and that they are valued. And when they send us questions, we do ask them. So
listen, that's linked to your millions.
Yeah.
Shout out Patreon.
But yeah.
I think the same, like when I said I asked Tripp, what some of his goals were and had he said money, I find the difference between great managers and good managers are, who's passionate about what they do. If you're just doing there's some dope managers that make a shit ton of money. But are they happy? I don't know. I don't know if they're passionate about it. So for me, it is, are you passionate? Do you want to do this outside of making money? Because again, like if your income is dependent on what your artist does, right? What opportunities you bring to them, and that can change, especially, you're dealing with a creative. Tripp, just like Tripp called me and told me to quit my job and move to LA, Tripp can call me today and say, I'm done making music. And then what? So I have to find, more opportunities in other artists. So I do feel like the managers also that can pivot. This is a very ever-changing industry that we're in. I mean, no one could have predicted COVID and how it would change the face of our industry and how a lot of our friends would be affected, especially in the live music and touring space. So just finding a great manager typically is one that can pivot on a dime, has a great attitude, loves what they do, passionate. Man, I think that's, and can wear many hats. Because sometimes, I am mom, sister, therapist, assistant. Like, there's not a job that I have not done in this role. And, sometimes I don't want to be assistant on one day, but if it's to help my artist get to the next level in that moment, I'm going to do it, because I got to put my ego aside and I'm going to make sure he's good. So I feel like great managers have that attitude. They have that positive attitude, and there's not much of the ego, and it's not about me. It's about the artist. My artist is supposed to be the famous one, not me.
Right.
I only have like 2,000. 1,000, 2,000. I don't know. I have a couple Instagram followers. He has 11 million. So it's like, and that's okay for me. I don't want 11 million. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I have to post for him and I'm like, my hand is shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, is there a typo? Do I sound like him? Is it me? Oh gosh, just put it up. And is he going to yell at me like that? That stuff, I'm not cut out for that fame. He is though. And that's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I look at the amount of likes on like popular Instagram accounts that I follow, and I'll see them and I'll be like, yo, 1.6 million people like this. Like that's twice as big as Baltimore, like where I'm from. Or yo, 600,000 people like this. Like, yo, that's a small city. It's like, yo, it's crazy the reach that people have now,
Yes. And it's scary. That's scary to me. I told you I came from Canton. This is a small town. I think we got like 100,000 people. Like, maybe that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, like you said, he's got something to say. So he's just consistently saying it to everybody who listens to his music, which is awesome. And everyone who follows him on Instagram. So that's great.
And so do you, Charlene.
Yeah.
Preach it. We appreciate it so much.
That's 2,000 too. We appreciate, you probably appreciate them too,
they think I have something to say. I don't know. Some days it is not a good thing to say, but I appreciate them.
And we're super grateful for having you on today. I think it's been an incredible journey watching all that you've accomplished too. And I think it's still very much the early days. So I'm very excited to see what comes next.
Oh, thank y'all both so much. This was so much fun. Yeah, I just feel like I'm on like a dope Zoom that I don't want to get off of.
But reality's calling, aka Trippy Red.
My phone's been in
literally
for an hour. Like I'm gonna turn it
about
off.
To like self-destruct.
You just see a text from him that's an address. Like, oh damn, I'm late.
I'm like, I gotta pull up. Damn.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Charlene.
Thank you both so much. It's been awesome.
Damn, that was good, man. Really enjoyed speaking with her. I think her like charisma, her drive, definitely could sense and feel the success even through the Zoom teleconference. So
she's getting her millions.
Yeah, that's right. She is in her bag. So I think what I also enjoyed too is, really just her telling the story when she first met Trippie Red, and how she kind of at first was a little hesitant, but then once he started coming down the stairs with the sauce, she was like, "Oh, that's it. This man is a star." So I think being able to have that ability and see that, and just I think the steps that happened after that, such a beautiful story. Just to reiterate too, another clear thing that I really loved was that they are very vocal about setting and accomplishing clear goals. It has largely created the foundation for them to succeed as a partnership. So I think whether you're an artist, a manager, a label, marketer, whatever it is, amongst your teams, with your artists, making sure you have very clear goals that are measurable, specific, kind of tie it to a specific time frame can be really, really valuable in setting you up to succeed. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I thought it was a great episode, man. I think it was extremely fun. I'm sure people have turned down the podcast a couple of times because I laughed so loud, but that's just how fun the conversation was. One thing I thought was super interesting that she spoke on was, like you're saying, not just goals, but Trippie Redd's motivations. I think his motivations, like she said, not revolving around money, more so revolving around being heard and realizing that you have something to say. I think it makes his hustle timeless, and it puts her in a place where she can actually do her best work. So I think we saw that in the way their relationship is and how natural it is and how they interact with each other. I think that derives from Trippie Redd's motivations, and in addition to Charlene's expertise and her charisma. So it's just really great to hear, what that relationship is like. And I think it'll inspire a lot of other managers to have similar conversations with their clients.
1,000%. And that's it for this week. And if you haven't already, do really want to encourage you guys to check out Vydia. They have an incredibly powerful tool for distributing your music and video. I think whether you're an independent artist, manager, label, or building a kind of more substantial team around yourself with a management company, with a label, Vydia is a very, very powerful solution to help you go about scaling your business and helping you focus on what you got to focus on so you can help grow and break your artists. So if you haven't already, you can apply and kind of request access to Vydia by going to vydia.com/MVP. That is VYDIA.com/MVP. We'll be back next week and we appreciate y'all. Until then, we out.